Okay, good morning everyone. Welcome to Committee Day. The first committee is the Planning and Development Committee. Given that the allocated or adopted chair for this committee is an apology, it's now my role to ask for nominations to chair this particular. Councillor Melissa.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I would nominate you to chair the Planning and Development Committee meeting.
Thank you. So I'm happy to second that. Seconded by Councillor Kerry. Those in favour? Motion's carried. Thank you. We then move to the fact that we welcome everyone, obviously those online and those in the room as well. I appreciate that. Welcome to all councillors present, and we'll cover off on apologies shortly. Welcome to CEO Sal and all those staff that are part of today as well. We do appreciate it. Reminder that we do need to click join the meeting in board view as well. I'll begin by acknowledging the Aboriginal parties whose songlines traverse the lands we meet on today, the Western Waka Waka, Guyval and Jarrawa peoples, and pay respects to their elders past, present and emerging, for they hold the knowledge, rich traditions and bold ambitions of Australia's First Peoples. We do have an apology from Councillor Farquhar that we do need to have a resolution for. Moved by Councillor James, seconded by Councillor Trevor. Those in favour? Motion's carried. We do note the apology or the absence of Councillor McMahon. Thanks, sir. And no resolution is required. Councillor, there's no items in the Planning and Development Committee for the month of October, so therefore I declare the meeting closed. And thank you very much.
Good morning, all. Welcome to third time lucky. Good morning, all. Welcome to the Water and Waste Committee meeting. The meeting, of course, is open to the public and will be live streamed. I'd like to thank those of you who are in the room with us today and acknowledge everyone watching via Council's social media channels. Remind councillors to click to join the meeting, and the meeting is now open. There is an apology from Councillor Farquhar, which will require a resolution. Ask somebody, Councillor Bonhoff, Councillor Bill, all those in favour? Carried. I also note the leave of absence of Councillor McMahon. No resolution is required in that regard. There are no items on the committee agenda for today. Accordingly, I close the meeting. Thank you for your attendance, and remind councillors to click Leave Meeting on board view. Thank you.
Recognise our CEO, our acting General Manager Infrastructure Services, Jake Passien, and our council business, Wendy. Welcome to the Infrastructure Committee meeting for the Toowoomba Regional Council for October. This meeting is open to the public and will also be live streamed. I'd like to thank those of you in the room with us today and acknowledge everyone watching via Council's social media channels. Just a welcome to country, please. Thank you. There used to be one here. Oh. Thank you very much. I acknowledge the Aboriginal parties whose songlines traverse these lands we meet on today, the Western Waka Waka, the Guyabal and the Jadawa and the Bigambal peoples, and pay respects to their elders past, present and emerging, for they hold the knowledge, the rich traditions and the bold ambitions of Australia's First Peoples. I'd like to open the meeting. The attendance including is leave of absence. We have a leave of absence for Councillor McMahon, so there is no resolution required. We do need a resolution for the apology for Councillor Farquhar. Can I have a mover, please? Moved Councillor Mantyfel, seconded Councillor Shine. Those in favour? It's carried. Thank you. We have a declaration of a prescribed conflict of interest for Councillor Gardner. Item number 4. Aerodromes, administrative updates and fees and charges.
I'm
Thank you,
told I
Councillor
don't-
Gardner.
Yeah, I'm told I don't have a conflict there anymore. Yeah,
Very much. Thank you.
but I do have one for item 3.
For item 3, thank you. And that's, thank you, Councillor Gardner. Declaration of COI, Councillor Gardner. Item 3, Transport and Drainage Planning, proposed amendments to the 25-26 registers of fees and charges and cost recovery.
I request that it be amended that I declared a declarable conflict of interest in relation to item number 3, temporary traffic management, fees and charges, at the Infrastructure Committee meeting of 12th of November 2024, and of Council's decision to allow me to participate in the decision about the matter, included by voting on the matter. As the relevant circumstances have changed, I will not participate in the decision about the matter, including by voting on the matter. For full clarity of the relevant circumstances, as per the Office of Independent Assessors recommendations, fees and charges are part of ordinary business and conflicts do not need to be managed. However, some of my related entities at times do apply for road closure permits, however, to no greater extent than other applications received.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Councillor Vonhoff, thank you.
Thanks, Madam Chair. This is just in relation to item number 4 and to specify that we have received advice that because it's administrative in nature, I don't have to flag my declarable conflict of interest. But that said, if we start to talk about the specifics of the Toowoomba Aerodrome, I will declare my conflict and leave the room. Thank you.
Anyone else needing to make a conflict? I'm sorry. Anyone else? No, we have that. Councillor Bill?
Madam Chair, we might want to change the agenda on the screen.
Yes, I haven't. Thank you. seek your patience for a few minutes. Wendy's trying hard to get it up. Thank you very much, councillors. I apologise for the delay. We have 2 items on the infrastructure services agenda for October committee meetings. And the first is item number 3, transport and drainage planning.
Madam Chair, can I just go back to that conflict? I just want to check with Councillor Gary, given that we've had advice on item 4, I would have assumed that would be the same for item 3. And therefore, unless we talk specifics about something that relates to Councillor Gary or an entity that he's part of, he would actually have nothing to declare. I just want clarification.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll ask the CEO to comment. Thanks.
Mayor, I don't disagree with your comment. Councillor Gardner has made his own determination, however. So if Councillor Gardner still believes that he wishes to leave, but you are correct, we are only talking about, in effect, rats and mice tidy up in an administrative sense. But Councillor Gardner has made his own decision.
Confused about when I leave, and I was taking the safe approach.
I will.
So, Councillor Gardner,
I'll
it
leave.
is your decision. Yeah, thank you very much. Transport and drainage planning, the proposed amendments to 25-26 register of fees and charges and cost recovery. And I'd ask, yes, thank you. And we have, thank you, Jake. And perhaps we need Manager Transport and Drainage Planning up here as well, Marie Gales. Thank you. Thank you, Jake.
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, councillors, and I'm glad to be able to be acting in the General Manager Infrastructure Services Group. It's been a fantastic couple of weeks, opportunity to work alongside some fantastic individuals in a different department, and I'm pleased to present the report today, which is around transport and drainage planning, proposed amendments to 25-26 Register of Fees and Charges. Essentially, councillors, we've, through the consultation process, since some fees and charges were adopted, we've received some feedback from applicants and members of the community, as well as identifying some administrative opportunities for improvement. As a result, we are putting forwards to you today some amendments to the fees and charges in relation to road network operations, and so wish for council to consider these changes. Amongst some are inclusions of new fees in relation to works on roads for footpaths, identifying that there's not just works on footpaths, but also, or works on roads rather, that roads include both the road and the footpath, and also trying to support better outcomes for the community when it comes to weed spraying, litter removal and minor activities, including regional promotions and installation of infrastructure for primary producers within the road reserve to ensure that the fees reflect an appropriate outcome for the community. In most instances, we're admitting or requesting that those fees be included to be omitted as part of the process. So happy to take any questions, noting that I am not the technical expert in this area, but I do have, as I said, some fantastic individuals at ISG, and my manager, Marie Gales, is here if there are any detailed questions. Happy to take them.
Thank you very much, Acting General Manager Jake. Any questions, councillors? Councillor Melissa?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Acting GM Jake for ISG. I have a couple of questions, if I may. Thank you. On page 5 of 6, and I'll just work off the original one rather than track changes, if that's okay. So 5 of 6, number 2D and 2G. So can I first of all ask a question? These fees and charges are cost recovery? Is that correct, Marie? Jack?
That's correct. They are to cost recover for the works that are completed by council officers.
Thank you. So then I note that those are actually non-refundable.
That's correct, because that's the application fee. So when
So,
you...
yeah,
No,
sorry,
it's
go
okay.
on.
Yeah, so when an application is lodged, officers request the fee be paid and then assess the application. So they have to go through the motions to ensure the application is properly made, ensure it contains all of that information. So all of that work happens as part of the first commencement of the application. So the work is done before a determination is made in relation to whether the application is approved or not.
So then I'm curious. Thank you, GM Jake. I'm then a little bit curious because if it's a flat fee of $3,000 and it's cost recovery and it's non-refundable, I'm just curious as to how we can say that every project will have a cost recovery amount of a flat $3,000.
So these fees are very similar to what we see in the development application space, where we look at the average of expenditure across the variety of applications that are received over the year and determine an average for that fee. Some fees are lodged that take more time than others. Other fees are lodged that take slightly less time, but on average across the 12 months prior, that's been the cost of assessing those fees and the officer's time put into those fees. Otherwise, we'd go through a process of having to obtain a quote, then provide the quote, and then and varied difference across those fees would be.
But I'm really curious, GM Jake, that if it's cost recovery, that does not to me mean an average. So for me, in my mind, it would be an application fee of up to $3,000, refundable if the cost recovery was less than $3,000. Because if it's, to me, an average is not cost recovery.
I understand, and that's a perfectly reasonable position to take, councillors. My question would be on the alternate side of that. If the application fee was greater than $3,000, would we be anticipated to then recover those costs from those applicants above and beyond what they've already paid?
But then if we put a cap on it of up to, as I said, up to $3,000.
That's up to council, but from a perspective of trying to set a reasonable application fee for all applicants to give certainty that represents an average amount of time, and the time for applications to be assessed and the effort does not vary wildly between applications. It's fairly consistent. An average gives both council and the applicant certainty around the fees to assess their application. But the method in which you have indicated is one that can certainly be considered, and up to council as to if they wish for us to go in that direction. However, there will be a likelihood that we will not fully cost recover over the full year, because we'll be refunding fees where perhaps we haven't quite met the $3,000, and then subsequently where we have exceeded the $3,000 application fee, be essentially subsidising those applications for that. For those instances.
Thank you, Acting GM Jake. Well then, on page 3 of 6, then may I ask of, let me just bring that up. Excuse me. Thank you for that advice. I'll take that on board before the ordinary meeting next week. So page 3 of 6, 2H. So in this one, we're talking about 43 cents per square metre per day charge. I'm just wondering, through yourself or through Marie, can you just give me a summary of what that charge is for before I ask my other questions, please?
Thank you, Marie. Jake, you're up.
Yeah, I'll pass over to Marie, and hopefully she'll be able to provide some
Thank you.
direct commentary on that, councillor.
We've realigned this one to match the footways, but the cost was developed based on a cost to community calculation. It can change, but we back calculated it from previous fees in the last year to apply to the works that are in the mainly CBD, but an average across the region. Again, these can be changed, but in the substantive change from the fees and charges structure last year to this year, we've calculated back in terms of the cost to community and the areas that generally people request.
So it says that it's an additional fee.
Yes, because this is the area where they're taking exclusive use of public footway and roadway for the purposes of the development and the building works.
Thank you, Marie. And I know that I'm asking this without notice, and my sincere apologies for that. So if you need to take some questions on notice before the ordinary meeting next week, that's fine. We've had some feedback from community, including industry, that this charge has actually doubled their quoted price for works or works that they'd priced for development, and it is actually hindering development within our CBD because of the increasing cost for that. Do you have any feedback on that?
Not on the 43 cents one, but I will take that on notice and do a bit of research in the interim.
So,
If you might, councillors.
yes.
So we understand that this is a change around how we've provided fees for works on roads permits. What the branch is trying to do is balance the needs of a construction site that might have significant impact to not just the public's use of the roads and footpaths, but to also try and drive efficient use of that. So whereas historically the activity of a works on road permit might have taken, let's say, 2 or 3 sides, so 3 roads and a frontage, it was a fixed fee, would have been there for a period of time, and there was no need for efficient or to drive efficient use of that space. So at industry's request, it was asked to go to a cents per metre rate, and we've worked through that. But what that also then means is that people need to understand how much space they actually need, not necessarily how much space they would have liked or would have previously used, and ensure that they're using that space as effectively and efficiently as possible, because there's impacts not just on themselves as how they go about doing the works, but also the users of the public road or the footpath and the impacts on that. And so what we've tried to do is come up with a way of trying to both drive efficiencies, but also come up with a fair fee structure which looks at the amount of area that somebody's using rather than just a fixed rate for a full permit, which again was made at the request of industry when this process was started. I'm not suggesting that we'll got it 100% right, but as you've seen through the process, we are continuing to review feedback and amend and adjust so that we get the balance right to ensure that development is facilitated appropriately, but also ensure the efficient use of the road network and the footpath network through those processes, so that somebody's not just closing a road for an indefinite period of time, whether they need to use that road or not use that road for the period of their entire development, to ensure efficient use of the resource that is there for the whole community.
Okay. Thank you, Jim. Jack.
Thank you, Councillor Lewis. Councillor Bill?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Through you to perhaps Marie or Jake. The previous one, Councillor Melissa raised about a fixed fee. If we were to go to an alternate option, to my mind, wouldn't that create quite an administrative burden? Because if we had variances to that, as you say, we'd have to go to quotes. So on an average, to deliver a service across that sector for road closures, it would be ultimately costing the public more in administrative burden if we were to try and tailor-make every situation through a quotation and acceptance, i.e. more staff time. So aren't we trying to minimise impacts here?
Through the chair, Councillor Bill, you are correct. There would be impacts associated with administration to both assess the application to develop a fee for quote, to assess, to review and then subsequently develop the quote. The other thing it would also add is additional time in the assessment of these applications, which we know that the industry has responded to us around trying to improve those turnaround times. So from the time an application is lodged to the time an application is approved is something that is of considerable focus by those applicants, and so we'd like to give them a surety on the fee, which then means we can get in, assess their application as efficiently as possible. However, if we have to go through a process of reviewing their application to determine the fee, then take payment, then actually assess the application, you can see how that might add an extended period of time to a process that already is in review to try and be as efficient as possible to reduce the time as much as possible.
So my short answer, Jake, would be for inputs and outputs under that suggested model or that other proposal, it'd cost us more, or it'd cost everyone more, actually. Okay.
Well, there's
Thanks.
a risk. There's a risk with the resources we have that that's exactly where it might go. I'm not suggesting that the team would not be competent and capable to do that, but that is a risk that may occur or may eventuate through that alternate process.
But ultimately, time is money. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Bill. Councillor Trevor.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Just a question. There's a lot of red on our documents here regarding primary producers and roadside burn-offs, spraying, all that type of stuff, and it says no charge. Was there a charge last time, or is this...
No, there wasn't a charge. The issue is that by omitting that particular fee from the process, it created some uncertainty as to whether there was or was not a charge. So being very clear, very, very upfront and open, we've clarified that there is no charge for those activities.
Well, that's good news. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. No, there wasn't. So that's really good. Good question, Councillor Trevor. Anyone else got any queries, questions? Thank you. If not, I'd ask for a mover of the resolution. Thank you. Moved Councillor Bill Kyle, seconded Councillor Trevor Mantyfel. If there's no debate, I'll put the vote to the vote. Thank you. All in favour? Thank you. Against? Thank you. It's carried. It's only committee. Thank you. So we move on to the next item. Thank you. We'll just... Yes. Well, Councillor Melissa wasn't. Didn't put a hand up, so, but it's only committee, but we do need a division because there has been a conflict of interest. So everyone except Councillor Melissa. Thank you. Welcome back, Councillor Gary. And we move on to item 4, which is aerodromes, administrative updates for fees and charges. And I'll ask Acting General Manager Jake to introduce this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, this report is titled Aerodromes Administrative Updates for Fees and Charges. Through review process of fees and charges, we've identified that there were some inconsistencies with the fees and charges relating to the aerodrome, not the quantum of fee, but predominantly the descriptions and the basis and durations, so that we have clarified that, and that was mainly due to inconsistencies in where we have indicated that there was an annual rate for touch and goes, where we've sort of indicated it was an annual rate. It should be included. It's a one-off fee for the whole year. It's not a per touch and go process, and also ensuring that those descriptions are completely aligned and uniform across all of the fees and charges. There's no change proposed to any of the quantum of fees. It's just to, administratively tidy those processes up so that there is absolute clarity. And again, that was based on some feedback from users of that facility who questioned and identified some opportunities for improvement, which our team has taken on board and looked to apply through this process. I'd also just indicate that because of the administrative nature of these changes, we are requesting that in future that the CEO has delegation, that you are a facilitator, or at least allow the CEO to make these changes under that delegation in future to avoid coming back to council. And we've been quite specific in relation to that delegation in that it is not to relate to the quantum or the intent of the fee, mainly just to clarify those administrative matters which relate to notes and note change the intent of the fee. So that's essentially what this report is, and happy to take any questions. Thank you, councillors.
Thank you very much, Jake. Councillor Main-Teufel?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Has consultation occurred with aerodrome people in just clarifying this, fixing all this up?
So to date, no consultation has been undertaken in relation to the changes. The changes were brought to our attention by members of the aerodrome. So we haven't consulted to say we're going to make the changes. They've identified some omissions and we're fixing them. So we think that might be the most direct route to take.
Thank you. That was just for clarity. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Main-Teufel. Any other questions, councillors? If there are no other questions, I'd ask that for a mover for the resolution. Thank you. Moved Councillor Main-Teufel, seconded the Mayor. If there's no other debate, I'll put the vote. Thank you. Those in favour? It's carried. Thank you very much. Oh, sorry, I'm having trouble with the microphone today. I've got it on when it shouldn't be. Sorry, my apologies. I'd like to thank Councillor Jake and Marie and all the staff that are in the room. Thank you very much.
Well, good morning, councillors. Welcome to the Environment Community Committee meeting of the Toowoomba Regional Council. This meeting is open to the public and will also be live streamed, so a big thanks to those that are in the room with us today, and also acknowledging everyone watching via council's social media channels. I'd like to acknowledge the CEO, Mr. Sal Petrosito, the General Manager of Environment Community Services, Nick Hauser, and as well to Wendy, and also actually a pretty good opportunity to acknowledge Wendy and Deanne. Actually, the recent Corporate Services Awards were recognised by their peers for their patience, for their expertise, for generally being so giving of their time with everything involved. So great to see that you got that recognition from your peers through that, and good opportunity to acknowledge you and thank you for helping us out as you always do and being with us here today. Also, welcome to Mayor McDonald, Deputy Mayor, Councillor Von Hoff, and councillors in attendance with us today. We'd like to begin the meeting by acknowledging the Aboriginal parties whose songlines traverse the lands that we do meet on today, the Western Waka Waka, Guyabal and Jarrawa peoples, and pay respect to their elders past, present and emerging, for they hold the knowledge, rich traditions and bold ambitions of Australia's first people. Councillors, before we do commence with the items that we have on the agenda today, I thought it's a pretty good opportunity. Obviously, we've seen the completion of the Toowoomba Carnival of Flowers for 2025, and to acknowledge and thank the efforts of the staff. So, Nick, if you could please pass it on, I'm sure on behalf of everybody in the room and our community, the staff that did an incredible job across 25 days. I don't think it's actually understood by community the size of the team that delivers the event as it is across 25 days. So they do an outstanding job. A big thank you goes to our gardeners through the gardens, which I think everyone would agree did an incredible job with those displays. The numbers showcase that again as well. Record numbers through Queen's Park Botanical Gardens at just under 230,000 visitors across 25 days and just under 115,000 at Laurel Bank, including a largest ever attendance day, which occurred the Sunday after the parade, which saw 21,000 people through the Queen's Park Botanical Gardens. So again, to the staff that do an incredible job with those gardens, we acknowledge you and thank you for making our region beautiful, but also, of course, to all of the private gardeners who open their homes, exhibition gardens, and of course all of the different community groups, the volunteers that make the event what it is. So we thank you for your contribution. It's because it is the people in the community that makes our Toowoomba Carnival of Flowers the amazing success that it is for our region. So a big thank you to everyone involved with that. Councillors, I'll go to item 2 on the agenda, and that's attendance, including apologies, leave of absence and declarations of conflict of interest. So first of all, an apology for Councillor Edwina Farquhar. So we require a resolution for that. So moved by Councillor Von Hoff, seconded by Councillor Melissa. All those in favour? That's carried. And we also just note the leave of absence from Councillor Tim McMahon with no resolution that is required there. So we have no declarations of prescribed conflict of interest or declarable conflicts of interest, if there are any that have arisen in the interim. And if they do come up throughout the meeting, please feel free to raise them. So, councillors, we'll go to item number 3. So this is the Toowoomba Running Festival item. Now, just noting, it is a public item. However, the attachment is confidential due to commercial matters. So, if there is any discussion in regards to that particular document, we will need to go into confidential, so please keep that in mind if you have questions regarding that. So for this item, I'll hand over to General Manager Nick Hauser.
Thank you, Chair James. Good morning, councillors. Councillors, by way of brief introduction, we've received a sponsorship application for the 2026 Toowoomba Running Festival, which is to be held on the long weekend in May again. This will be the 3rd time the event's been conducted, and Council has been a sponsor for the previous 2 events. Councillors, the applicants requested $50,000 in sponsorship for us, and the recommendation for you before you today is to approve a sponsorship in the order of $40,000. We think that it's a good event. The assessment panel believes there's value in sponsoring the event. However, owing to our available budgets and need to meet those constraints and retain a pool of sponsorship funding for future applications, which we know are coming, and others that we don't know yet are coming, we propose a sponsorship in the order of $40,000. The applicant may wish to negotiate some of the benefits that are occurring as a result of that reduction, if you so approve it, and we would work through that exercise in negotiating the sponsorship for them. So with that, I commend the report and the recommendation to you, and we'll answer your questions.
Thanks, Nick. So obviously you'll see Andrew Allpass here with us as well to answer any questions. So councillors, any questions in regards to this particular item? Councillor Shaw.
Thanks, Chair. Without going into the confidential document, but just in a general question, to whom, what entity road closure fees paid?
Councillor, there's application fees to council, but then there are also additional costs that they're required to pay to traffic management. So they'll engage a traffic management company, and that would be the bulk of the fees and costs associated with road closures. The costs associated with road closures are twofold. There's the application and costs associated with closing roads, but then also the cost of the traffic management.
Speaking generally, can you give us an idea of what the application fees for a event of this nature would be, which is fairly extensive, I presume.
Councillor, I'd have to take that question on notice. I
Perhaps
don't
for
know.
next
No.
week, if you could.
Sure.
Yeah.
So happy to look into that, and I'll circulate
I
that advice
apologise
to all
for not giving you
councillors.
notice.
Thanks, Councillor Shine. Mayor McDonald.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I just noting in the report that there will be quite a change for next year's event, obviously third year, and they changed it this year to accommodate, by and large, the traffic management and the impact on residents, and the feedback certainly seems to be from their report, the very minimum, and anecdotally, people who had complained in the past that there was a significant improvement in that. The bigger change this year was, of course, shifting part of the event to the Toowoomba Wellcamp Airport, who are a major sponsor of the event. Has there been discussions in regard to the shift from there back to which was the first year, which is around the Toowoomba Sports Ground? Do you know of any discussions that have taken place, or they're aware of that? They're aware that it's the proposal is to shift from there back to one site in town.
Thank you, Mayor. Through Nick and Chair, prior to this report coming to the October round of meetings, I did reach out to the applicant and advise them that this discussion could come up and that it would obviously highlight that there was a change in that approach to a single-day event away from activities at the airport, and they confirmed that they were happy to proceed and it wasn't going to impact their timings in terms of their negotiations with other sponsors.
I appreciate that, and obviously the numbers of growth from the first year to the second year seem to have been good across all areas except probably for the marathon, which is why, as part of the report, they've suggested to drop off that. From a half marathon perspective, will this then elevate that to an international qualification event? Do you know, the half marathon?
There's been no direct conversation around international qualification, but I think the applicant has identified that there's the greater interest in the half marathon offering, and they're going to pour all of, more of their focus and energy into elevating that event.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thanks, Mayor McDonald.
I'm happy to move it at the time that's appropriate.
Okay, so I've got a move which I'll hold on that. Any further questions? Councillor Menteifel.
With the full marathon being deleted from this event this year, obviously that will require less road closures over the whole city area. And has there been any estimations of how much economic benefit it brings to Toowoomba and region?
Yes, thank you, Councillor. There has been, in the event review submissions that are required as part of the sponsorship agreement for the previous 2 years, those impacts and reports have been provided. And in the vicinity of 1.3 million was the economic impact for the region from this year's event. That doesn't include what's referred to as equivalent advertising value, which is basically mentions or coverage in media and what value that would provide in terms of equivalent advertising rates. The submission for 2026, we ask applicants to complete economic ID event impact calculation, particularly for requests of this size, and that's looking at a forecast impact of around 1.6 million for 2026.
Thanks, Andrew.
If I could just provide a point of clarity, that's for you mentioned specifically, Councillor Trevor, the marathon component of the event. The information Andrew's provided is in relation to the entire running festival, which is inclusive of all the different events, the marathon, the half marathon, 10K, the 5K, the mile race, etc., etc. So there won't be a breakdown of impact by particular race. It's for that entire event.
Thanks, Councillor Trevor. If there aren't any further questions, just one, if I can ask the guys. I know I spoke to you about this yesterday, Nick. I think I was one. I said I was understand, but disappointed that they'd deleted the marathon, and I guess, but from the but Trust, obviously, this is a group that runs these all over Australia, so there's probably some sound reasoning behind it. But I'd be interested to see, and I guess, and we obviously have a comfortability that the event gets scaling back from 2 to 1 still will deliver the same, if not better, economic return to our region, because that's a big part of the success of these events is obviously having visitors that are attending our region as a part of this, but then obviously it's providing that economic benefit for our communities.
Thanks, Chair. Councillors, last year 2,800 participants attended the entire event, and of those 170 were marathon participants. So some 2,600 participating across all of the other events, and they're projecting those visitations to grow to almost 3,500 for next year, regardless of the removal of the marathon event. So I think typically what happens with these events is people come the night before, because the races start early in the morning. They come the night before, that's where the visitor nights are, and potentially extend their stays, given it's the long weekend in May. So most people would arrive on the Saturday night, stay the night, do their event and go home, or perhaps extend their stay and stay another night. So that's the projections that they've provided to us. So the removal of the marathon event really is seen to have limited impact on the overall benefits, but has great impact in reducing the operational effects. And Councillor Trevor mentioned the additional closing of roads and extended times associated with the marathon. So I understand that would be the reasoning.
Thanks, General Manager. Sorry, Councillor Shine.
Good. I note that the event is to be run by the Gold Coast Events Management Group. I think originally there was prolonged but effective lobbying by the Toowoomba group. They might have been Toowoomba Roadrunners some years ago. I take it that that group is happy with the management being undertaken by Gold Coast.
Yes, Councillor, I confirm they are very happy with the arrangement, yes.
Thanks, Councillor Shine. So if there are no further questions, I have a mover in the Mayor, so the recommendation there is before you. So Council approve a sponsorship of the 2026 Toowoomba Running Festival to the value of 40,000 GST exclusive for naming rights, which is Visit Toowoomba Region associated with the 10-kilometre event, and 2, that a sponsorship agreement between Council and Gold Coast Events Management Limited be executed by the CEO in respect of the 2026 Toowoomba Running Festival. I have a mover in Mayor Jeff. Do I have a seconder in Deputy Mayor Councillor Von Hoff? Does anybody wish to go into debate? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thanks, Andrew. So, councillors, we move to item 4 on the agenda. So just do a changeover up on the front table here as well in terms of staff. But again, to introduce item 4, councillors, it is the Access and Equity Policy Review. So we welcome Darryl Bates to the front. And in regards to this, so now that Mr. Bates is in place, I'll pass across to General Manager Nick Hauser.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the way you tried to duck there, Darryl. I don't think you were hidden though. Councillors, the Access and Equity Policy is overdue for review. It was first adopted by Council in December of 2015 to support the implementation of the then Access and Equity Plan, which had a lifespan of 2016 to 2021. The policy at that time was very heavily linked to that Access and Equity Plan, and now at the conclusion of that plan and no subsequent plan currently in development, the policy's been updated to remove those references and provide a more contemporary and agile policy response to meeting our access and equity desires. Councillors, I draw your attention to the statement of intent, which is included in the policy, but it's also highlighted at the first paragraph under issues and responses. And that statement of intent affirms Council's commitment to delivering services, facilities and programs that are accessible to all members of the community. Council will take proactive measures to meet legislative obligations and will engage with appropriately qualified accessibility professionals during the early stages of infrastructure planning, whether for new developments or renovations, to ensure access and equity considerations are embedded from the outset. And I think that statement is at the heart of what this policy is all about. The policy acknowledges that a framework of legislative and regulatory provisions already exist to guide appropriate delivery of infrastructure and services in relation to access and equity. And rather than try and supersede or override those legislative and regulatory requirements, the policy complements those provisions. It's also proposed, councillors, to reclassify the policy from a council policy to an organisational policy, and councillors, that simply streamlines the approval process. Council policies and any amendments or reviews are required to come here to you for your approval, whereas organisational policies follow the same consultation process but are presented to the CEO for the CEO's endorsement. This policy is very heavily inwardly focused towards our staff around the development, delivery of infrastructure and service provision, and the requirement to undertake the necessary consultation. So it's thought that it better aligns as an organisational policy that guides the activities of our staff rather than a council policy which is more outwardly focused. So councillors, with that I commend the report and the recommendations to you, and we're happy to take your questions.
Thanks, Nick. Councillor Von Hoff.
Thank you, Chair. Through you. Thanks very much, GM Nick. Thank you, Daryl. I have a question about in the document about the definitions. And under the definition of disability, so I'm looking at page 5 of 6 here, it says it includes a disability that under I and under J, a disability is something that previously existed but no longer exists, and J, may exist in the future. And perhaps this is standard language for this, for disability and inclusion, but I just don't understand what that actually means when we're casting forward and casting back on disability.
Thank you. Yeah, yes, it is a standard definition that we utilise within it, but I suppose the key one about that one previously existed but no longer might be, well, in examples had been medical, so a medical condition shorter term that they'd had that meant had a time period around, and it could be accessibility, those kind of stuff around it. So, but they are standard definitions that I'd put together, that had been put together in terms of this policy. I probably didn't answer it very well, though, did I? But definitely, in terms of shorter term injuries, those kind of things, is where I fits into it.
Just have to wrap my head around it. I'm not.
Councillor, we can find the source of that definition for you if you like. We will have pulled it from an industry standard somewhere. I just don't know off the top of my head.
Just to understand, because the report talks about how this this has such wide-ranging implications, and we have to really consider what that means. And I just need to understand, I suppose, that we're not in our definition making it so broad that so as to be impractical or unworkable. Yeah.
No, Councillor Von Hoff, I think it's a good question. I think maybe put a bit of context around it, because one of the services we do offer as an organisation is council cabs. And for example, you might have injured yourself, you might be unable to walk, and one of the services we may provide is the consideration of a council cab to the particular individual. Once you are healed and all that, you won't have the requirement to use a council cab, so then you could go back to use normal public transport. Right. I'm assuming, my staff, that is the intent of how this definition is to be interpreted. Okay.
That's great. That makes perfect sense. Thank you. No need to refer to anything further. Thank you.
Thanks, CEO. So, Councillor Carl.
No, at the appropriate time, I was happy to move it. That's all, Chair.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Carl. I've got a mover. I'll hold that once I've exhausted questions. So, Councillor Shine.
Yeah, no, thanks, Chair. I was interested when you read out the statement of intent, and I was just wondering whether that the obligations that Council imposes on itself, ensuring its services, facilities and programs are accessible by all, does that apply to events, for example, like the one we just dealt with, the marathon, which is conducted and organised and run by somebody else entirely away from our control. Are we still obliged to ensure that those that event, either to view it, I suppose, let alone participate in it, is accessible to all?
Councillor Shine, it's a good question. The onus is on the event organiser and operator to ensure that compliance. It's something, however, council might like to take into consideration when it's assessing applications for sponsorship, whether they've adequately addressed those requirements.
One could imagine it would be difficult for everyone to compete in a marathon, myself included, and but it is a very wide obligation that's set out there.
Thanks, Councillor Shine. So yeah, I think, as the General Manager said, but I think it's also as well, this is obviously a document a lot geared towards what we do and standards we have for our staff and our facilities and things like that. But as we said, I mean, it's one of those things that certainly does come into applications in terms of how an applicant has met a lot of these standards that council requires. And do they have any further questions in regards to this? Councillor Von Hoff?
Thanks, Chair. Thank you. Just one other, if I might, through you. When I'm reading the statement of intent and also then the definition of inclusion and the wide-ranging nature of the policy, is this the sort of thing, because under inclusion, the definition is inclusion is about valuing all individuals, giving equal access and opportunity to all. And so when we are planning our footpaths and our lighting policies and all of this sort of thing, is this a policy that comes into play in our strategies to make sure that there is sufficient lighting so that paths are more open to all people to be used?
The short answer to that question is yes.
Yeah.
Those requirements are already embedded in legislation, so we're not going over and above. We're simply stating that we are committed to ensuring we comply with that legislation, like we have any other choice, but it's also compelling us to undertake the necessary consultation and engage professionals where required.
Thanks.
Councillor Carroll-Taylor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The issue, that is the case, but the issue is when we have to try to retrofit some of the things that we have. And whilst, in my view, and the time I've been sitting here, many people come in and we just don't have the funds to do it. So many of our things don't meet this criteria, but many of them are historical. So it's not possible for that to be addressed overnight until it's refreshed. So, I think it is, I think we need to adopt this because it's our aspiration. And of course, going forward, we have to comply with it. But if you put the prism over what is already existing, it doesn't always work because it's historical and the cost to council would be prohibitive.
I just wanted to add to that, Councillor Taylor, you're absolutely correct. And the requirement is when we build any facility, it needs to meet the code of the day. And as the code changes, building codes changes, there's no imperative to go back and retrofit to meet the new codes. However, there are triggers as you do refurbishments and upgrades. And if they're of a considerable standard or they meet a certain threshold, then there is an obligation to meet the code of the day.
Thanks, Councillor Taylor. If there are no further questions, the only one that I had, Nick, and it may be relevant to this or not, I don't think it's relevant necessarily to the policy, but certainly the conversation, is where do our advisory committees, our working groups fit into this? Because we refer through this document around consultation with experts and things like that. Would this be a prime example of where, and we've reshaped some of those groups, where some of those working groups or advisory committees, through whichever sector it may be, when we're talking access and equity, would be used as particularly one of those subject matters?
Thanks, Councillor O'Shea. And you're right, in the past we have used the previous Regional Access Disability Advisory Committee as a reference point. That advisory committee hasn't been reformed, and Darryl and his team are doing work on a community reference panel that might serve to replace that that function. Again, though, reading from the statement of intent, it says that council will engage suitably qualified accessibility professionals at the early stages of projects. So in addition to consulting with that reference panel when it's established and it's operational, there's that obligation also to engage with disability professionals.
Thanks, Nick. So, councillors, with that, if there are no further questions, I do have a mover of the motion in Councillor Bill Carl. So we'll just read the recommendation that we're voting on at this point in time. It is that council adopt the revised 2.60 access and equity policy, and in doing so, approve its recategorisation from a council policy to an organisational policy in accordance with the 2.01 policy framework. So moved by Councillor Carl. Do I have a seconder for that particular motion? Seconded by Councillor Carol Taylor. Any need to go into debate? I'll put the vote. Those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thanks, councillors. So that does conclude the Environment and Community Committee meeting for the month of October. Thanks to General Manager Nick. Thanks, Daryl. We now move to Corporate Services.
Thank you, Wendy, very much. Again, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Corporate Services Committee meeting. First job is to appoint a chair for this committee meeting, given that our nominated chair is an apology today. Councillor Rebecca.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I appoint you as chair. I nominate you as chair.
Thanks. Seconded, Councillor Trevor. Those in favour? Motion's carried. We'll therefore continue with the meeting, and welcome to all of those watching online and those members of the public as well. The apology we need to record a resolution for is Councillor Farquhar. If someone move, Councillor Melissa, Councillor Kerry. Those in favour? Motion is carried. Noting the leave of absence of Councillor Tim McMahon. That concludes the meeting for Corporate Services Committee. We'll close out of that meeting and go to economic development. Thank you, Wendy. Good morning again, councillors, CEO Sal, and those watching online or indeed in the room. First item for the Economic Development Committee is to appoint a chair, given that the nominated chair is an apology today. Councillor Rebecca.
Thanks, Chair. I nominate you as chair.
Thank you. Councillor Trevor, second. Those in favour? That motion's carried. Therefore, welcome everyone to the Economic Development Committee for the month of October. Meeting is open to the public and will be live streamed. We need to record an apology for Councillor Farquhar. Could someone move by Councillor Melissa, second by Councillor Carroll. Those in favour? Motion is carried. Noting that we do have a leave of absence for Councillor Tim McMahon as well. And being no items for Economic Development Committee for the month of October, declare the meeting closed. Thank you.